Welcome back to On The Real, Angelo, and today's special guest is our very own Sister Janet from Faithful Life Ministry, as well as her husband Edwin, also from Faithful Life Ministry. It's a pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Born South Bronx girl, came into Long Island at the age of 11, right? And my mom came into like her Pentecostal stage out in Long Island, I would say in her 40s, early 40s. So I didn't know nothing about God or anything like that until I would say my mother's introduction. Though my grandfather was a pastor, came out here, graduated from Brentwood, and here I am.
Similarly, I was born in the Bronx. Yeah, we were born in the same hospital, Lincoln Hospital. I moved out here when I was about 7 years old. Kind of the same thing, like I remember in the Bronx, it was Catholic. Everything was a Catholic. I even did my confirmation and all that. So I knew about God, but I wasn't really involved in it. It was just a standard thing that you had to go to Sunday school. I had to stay in St. John of God. I did my Sunday school stuff there. Yeah, we moved out here, I was 7 years old, graduated from Islip High School, and that's pretty much how it started.
And so how do you guys come to the Lord?
Okay. Go ahead, you wanna go?
He came to, I think you came, I'm letting him talk for himself, right? But for me, my mother, you know, it's so odd because my grandfather, like I said, was a pastor. Him and his brothers were pastors. And my mom lived a life of Santeria. And so, you know, yeah, they used the Bible, of course, wrongly. The stuff I saw growing up, the gatherings, I don't know what you want to call those meetings. I mean, since a little girl.
Like seances and stuff like that?
The stuff I saw was mind-blowing. And I can't tell you the when, but my mother gave her life to the Lord. And in giving her life to the Lord and witnessing stuff, you know, my dad wasn't saved just yet. My dad was not an easy man. But my mom, man, she gives her all, she gives her all. And I would walk in and she would be praying. You know, I just witnessed her life. My dad was a little different. My dad would be a church-going guy, but when he got home from church, it was chaos, so it didn't match, you know. So I was kind of like, yeah, this is not for me. And then one day she says, "Hey, why don't you come to church?" And I was like, okay. And this was kind of the first time I kind of been able to separate, I would say, religion to relationship, was when I said okay. And she's like, okay. And then my father walks in the room and he goes, "You're going to church?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're going in those pants and jeans?" I go, "Yeah." And he really came at me about going in jeans. And my mother's like, "God doesn't care what you're wearing. God doesn't care what you're wearing." You know, her issue was, get her in church. You know, let God deal with her. But my father was like, "No, you're going to be an embarrassment and you're going to be," and it was really like, forget it. I'm like
legalistic, yeah.
Yeah. And one day I went, at the age of 16, I went, and I'm not going to say this is when I gave but I went, my mom didn't feel well. She didn't go. And the minister starts doing an altar call. I'm the only unsaved person in the room. Who's the altar call for? And it just kept on, I feel it in my heart. That's so I'm like, oh God. And then people just started surrounding me. And it just from the pressure of that, I feel like I received the Lord, not for me. It was weird. That's how I came home. I came home to my mom. I said, "Ma, I feel like I didn't do that for me." And my mom, I had dreams of her passing and stuff like that. And eventually she passed. She passed like the day before my 21st birthday. But I knew she was praying. I knew she was praying for him, or I knew it, you know? And then came a day where we were arguing. We were married. I had Stephanie, a little nothing. And I would get off the bed to go in the living room to watch TV or whatever. And it's only because this is unsaved Janet. It irked him and I was mad at him. So I would just get out of bed. He couldn't sleep. He said, "Could you come to bed?" I'm like, "Nope." I would say no. But there was nothing for me to read. And what do I see? The Bible my mom gave. So I would read it. Okay. And little by little, I was getting up at night now because I wanted to finish reading what I started reading. And one particular day, I was reading it and I felt like I was seeing myself in it. It became alive, if I may. And it scared me a little bit. And I'm like, what is it? What is going on? You know, I was like, and then I had a dream. I had one dream and I never read it in the Bible. And I had a dream that we were in an open field. And there was trees, just grass and trees. And then there was these clouds, and behind the clouds, there was like red and this blue and these different colors of like lightning behind the clouds. And then I looked down and my mother-in-law's in the dream. And I go, "What is that?" So like a pit of people waving their arms. And I go, "What is that?" And she goes, those are the souls that are staying behind, is what she tells me in the dream. So I'm like, oh, like, and then the sky broke open. And I see Jesus coming. There was no, it was a white robe, gold belt. I don't remember seeing shoes. I don't know wings, none of that stuff. I woke up shook. I was like, what just happened? Like, what is that? So when the dream, I started thinking about it, I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm crying. It was a Sunday morning. I wake up and I go, he has some tickets to go to a baseball game. So I go upstairs to him. I didn't want to go. I said, I got to go to church. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to go to church. And I went to my mother-in-law who was upstairs. And I tell her my dream. No, I didn't tell her my dream. She goes, oh, I had a weird dream. I go, what do you mean you had a dream? She goes, I had a dream with a man all dressed in white.
And I had a dream the same day,
that
too.
came to me.
You had the same dream?
Different.
No, so my mother-in-law has this dream. I have this conversation with my mother-in-law. I go back to the room. Now he rolls over on his back. He was going to his game. So I'm like, okay. So I'm looking for clothes. He's like, oh. And he goes, oh, I had a dream. He has a dream that my mother passed already. And you can share that part where he said that he had a dream that my mother had her hands on him praying. So all of us have these three dreams. These three dreams that night, and we went to church. Went to Love Church. I didn't know Love Church Catholic. I didn't know. I just knew I had to be in church.
So the way it started with me, I was always, like I said, Catholic, the whole 9 yards with that, doing my confirmation, but I didn't know God. My older brother, he was going to a Christian church. It was called Revival Mission Center. I would go every once in a while, maybe till I'm 16, 17, go back to that church with my brother, and he would do some preaching himself and so on and so forth. And then I backslid, now I'm getting out of high school. I go back, it was a Friday night, or I forgot what day the youth was, but I go there and I go upstairs, and first time I see Angel Falcon. He goes, hey, how you doing? This is almost 40 years ago. He was the youth pastor at that church.
He was the English-speaking pastor.
The English-speaking pastor at that church. So I went to his service, and that's how we became friends. That's when I actually accepted the Lord at one of his services about a year before I got on the job.
You were a police officer, you said, right?
Detective, police, yeah.
In
for a
where?
long time, Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
I started in Brooklyn and ended up in Manhattan. And I eventually ended up in Manhattan Special Victims. We did child abuse and sex crimes.
Okay.
It was SVU. I did that for 11 years. And then from there I went to, it's called real-time crime, like the intel of the department for the Bureau.
Okay.
And I did that my last 5 years. But I'll give you a quick Lord interruption story that saved my life.
Okay.
This was about 1989, maybe 90, 89. I was a rookie, and as a rookie in transit police, I was a transit cop.
We were dating. We weren't married yet. We were about to get married.
So I'm riding the subways. Now, AP hours means 8 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning. And all you do is ride your trains. You take a train from one point to the end point and come back down.
Okay.
While I'm on that post, and I'm waiting for the train to go back, there was a homeless, crazy man that was on the platform. He's kind of not near me, but close enough where I have to keep an eye on him. At the time the train pulls in, as I'm going on into the train, the guy grabs me from my jacket and says, Jesus told me to tell you not to get in the car. And the door's closed. Ding, ding. And I'm like, oh boy. I grab this guy, I take him down. The train leaves. So now, I wasn't concerned. This guy was a small guy. I wasn't concerned about him. He did grab me. I put him down. He wasn't resisting. The train takes off. Now I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm not on my train. So I'm like, all right, I don't want to lock this guy up. I just want to go home. So I grab the next best thing. I do an ejection. An ejection is just taking the guy and throwing him out. We used to do that. We had an ejection form. So I grab this guy. I cuff him up just to be safe. And I put over the air, 3381, that was my shield. I got an ejection at 207th Street, heading him down. At that, I hear a sergeant on the air. Have that unit stand by. That was a District 3 sergeant. I was from 2, but I was in his territory. It's just the way it works. And he said, have that unit stand by. He came to scratch my book, basically, and say, he assisted, or it was there when I ejected this person. And I was like, great. I have proof that I did an ejection, and nobody could say nothing. I have a sergeant's signature. So I have the guy, my sergeant comes down with his driver. He's like, what's going on? He goes, yeah, this guy kind of like grabbed me before I went on my training. And he said, you want to lock him up? And no, he didn't resist. I just want to throw him out. And the guy at the same time was rambling, Jesus this, Jesus that. So, you know, this is 1989. There was a lot of crazy people at the time, right? Crack, AIDS, heroin, the epidemic was just out of control, right? So it was nothing unnatural at that point, you know? And that's the least of our problems. We had homicides over 2,000 those years, you know? So he said, all right, just get him out of here. So I grab him and I say, get out of here. I uncuff him. He has to walk to a corridor and go upstairs and exit. There was a cement wall and metal grates. There's nowhere to go, right? Cement wall, grates, metal, like almost like bars, and up the stairs and he goes. So he goes down that way, turns up, and I'm there BSing with the sergeant and the other cop. Hey, what's going on? I said, yeah, I'm gonna catch my train. I gotta go back to District 2 to get back to the command so I can go home. Me, I'm like, all right, let me just find out where this guy is. I don't want him coming back. I go up to the thing and I see that the gate is locked. So, locked. You know, there were bars to exit. So I'm like, where the freak did this guy go? Like, he didn't come back the other way. We were standing right there. It was impossible. So I'm like, could he have squeezed in between these bars? And I'm like, did somebody like lock this just this second? I mean, I didn't get it. But at that point, I didn't care. He was gone. Let me catch my train and go back. Train's not coming. Train's not coming. Train's not coming. So I get up and I go across because the 1 and the A, they're parallel. They run down to the same location, right? So I catch a quick bus, go across the A line, get to the A line, and I catch the A train down to Canal. Get out and I'm going to my command and I'm like, what's all the white shirts? I walk in, white shirts means lieutenant aboves.
Okay.
So I walk in, he's like, oh, there he is. Hey, Rivera, come over here. Why weren't you on your train? He's like, I had an ejection, boss. Look, here's my papers. The sergeant signed it. He goes, well, you're lucky. That train derailed and smashed. People got hurt. There was 3 people on the train. The conductor, the motorman, and 1 person. They were both all of them were in the hospital because they derailed and smashed into a bunch of poles. It was about 4 o'clock, maybe earlier. About 4 o'clock, 3:40, something like that. And normally I would be standing up, but sometimes in between cars, because I'd watch things. I don't know what would have happened to me if I was on that train.
Right.
You know? But it didn't dawn on me till later on. I'm sitting in command like, what just happened to me? Who was that person? You know? That was a complete divine intervention.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. That was a complete divine intervention.
And he said, he uttered those words. Jesus told me
To tell you not to get on that train.
to get on that train.
Right.
That's insane. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I've said this story before. I've said it a million times, you know? And it's so vivid in my mind because it's something you can't forget.
Right.
When this was all happening, my mother's cousin from Connecticut, he's a pastor, and he was visiting, and both of them were like, oh yeah, they had him on their hearts praying. They were praying for him. He gets home, whatever, and then he tells me what happened, and I tell them what happened.
Wow.
And they were like, that's God. And it was just, but just to know that God awoken them to pray. He's saying this happened at 3-something, 4 in the morning. And they were up. And he said, he goes, I woke up. It was still dark out. I went to the window that faces the front of my house. And he goes, and he just leaned on the window like this. Just praying.
So he saved you from that moment.
Yep. I'll have other moments too. Throughout my life, it's, I've had a lot of different, from 9/11, to guns in my face and stuff like that.
Where God intervened.
Yeah, definitely was him.
I
Right?
always tell you should walk on your knees. Just be grateful, man. Walk on your knees. If I were you, I'd be walking on my knees. But yeah.
I mean, 9/11, when I responded, the car I responded to got, demolished because I got there before the towers went down. We didn't think the towers were coming down.
Right.
Because I had slept over the night before. I was working and I got there. I was on the FDR when the second plane hit. I was on the FDR with my lieutenant and the captain getting ready to set up a command center downtown because we were leading the charge with the command center for the detective bureau. We get down there, we park, we see the towers, like, wow, this is really bad. And at that point, we start trying to find a building to take over. So we walk in, we grab a building. This is our command center. That's it. And we found the building. We found one building at first. We're right next to the towers. We were like, no, we don't have enough phone lines. Let's grab another one. Let's just go. Keep looking. Keep looking. We went around the block to another building that was kind of like under construction, but it had a ton of phone lines. Oh, this is it. We're going to set up our command center here. At which point, that building starts shaking, rumbling. We thought another plane was coming down. We didn't know what the hell it was. When I'm talking about the building was swaying, that's when we ran out and we saw the plume coming at us, and we ran and we all got separated. You know, I got overcome with all that debris and stuff like that. I ran all the way down to by Canal Street. And then, you know, I turning around realized, oh my God, the tower just went down. We were right there. The car that we parked by Chambers Street, it was done, gone. Yeah. If we were in that building next door, I don't know what would have happened. That would have been done. And I called her before. I woke up, I said, honey, do you see the news? I'm going down to the towers. She didn't know where I was at that point.
So, did God tell you anything at that point?
I was at work. I didn't know what happened until I got to work. So when I got to work, it was on the news about these planes. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know yet. So I'm like, oh, then he calls me that he was on his way down there. Then of course, because, you know, everybody leaves the TVs on and everything's going on. The building, when they came down, now I'm like, he's on his way there. Wait a minute, where is he?
And then the towers went down. We had no
communication.
No communication
for a long time. From him. So it was kind of like, then he got, I don't know what you got to, a payphone. He got to something.
No, it was a hotel that let all the cops come in and clean themselves off.
And he called me.
Yep.
And he goes, and it was just to hear it in his voice. It's like, just pray. This is not good. Just pray. And I'm like, okay, you know, but hearing his voice is like, oh, okay, you know.
And so, you said you came to the Lord, you was 22, you said, right?
No, I was 22.
You was 22.
I was about 15, 16. I was young.
You was young. So here you are, you're a police officer, seeing so many different things, and especially in SVU.
I wanted to adopt a girl. Remember when I wanted to adopt that girl?
Say what?
It was special victims and homicide. We investigating the death of a 4-year-old little boy who was beaten to death. Because it was homicide and we had kids involved, they involved SVU for that, special victims. So I was in charge of the little girl. So I had to forensically interview her about what she saw. And I still remember, his name was Papo. I saw Papo get hit and then he died. That's what the little girl told me. A beautiful little Spanish little girl, about 6 years old.
Okay.
And I had to interview her for that. I had to see the autopsy of the 4-year-old boy. But in that, I wanted to take this baby away from everything because I knew what was going to happen now. She's going to go in the system. You know what I'm saying? And I called her up. I said, can we take her home? I knew it was unrealistic. And she was like, are you crazy? What are you doing?
I said, yes,
if I could do it.
It was so heavy on his heart that I said, hey, that's the route. Okay, because the little girl, I think her name was Stephanie, and she was 6. And we had our Stephanie, and she was 6. So I think that was a double smack on his reality.
Yeah, gotcha. So that really
That was a beautiful little girl. Beautiful. And I had to spend the whole day with her. I bought a McDonald's. I took care of her because her little brother was just beaten to death.
So what happened? Why did you guys in?
Unrealistic. She had family. Her father, I remember, was from out of state. He actually flew in. He flew in and took the baby, took the custody of the kid.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
Yeah, it's not.
No.
I can imagine.
I mean, I've seen a lot of, I can go here for a long time.
I know you can. I know you can. You said, what, 15, 16 years on the force, right?
I did 25 years on the force.
So I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of stuff.
I think it takes a toll. I don't care who you are. I think it takes a toll. If you're sitting, listening to little children being abused, hearing these stories, I think it'll take a toll. So that's why you have to guard your heart.
Right,
constantly, yeah.
And you have to do those things. And I personally believe that the special victim unit where he was in shifted him. It affected him in different ways, and there was things that, because it did, he was coming home affected. He was coming home, that little girl that, though, don't get me wrong, he stood his ground and stuff, but in all the years, 25 years, the biggest shift I saw was that unit. Now he's I think you had to review videos, right? You have to question children. I think it just affects
Your psyche.
so that's when at 9/11 I saw him. He came. I remember he was gone for 4 days, and he came home, and I was in the room. He was in the living room, and I saw him checked out. Like you saw him affected, sitting in the living room, and I left him alone, and I just watched him from afar, and I'm like, Lord, help him, because I don't know what he saw, what he witnessed, and all that. And then that's one of the shifts. And then the second shift that I saw was in that unit,
Yes,
just
for
the
you.
coming home, little things shifting, little things. And I'm like, what's going on,
So it affected him and now we're gonna be talking about you now. We'll talk about it. It affected him in which way? Like his demeanor, did it affect his language? Did it affect, like, in which way?
I think the way he started thinking, I think the way he started looking at things.
Yeah, tragedy constantly.
Yeah, so it's just,
So more
and then
of
like
towards
kinda,
like a negative spin on things?
Yeah, I
maybe?
mean, negative spin. I was drinking more.
Okay.
I was drinking a lot. She could attest to that, right?
yeah. And he would get angry at me for telling him the truth. I'm like, dude, this is what's happening, and he would get angry. And there was a time when this man was not easy to anger
Right.
at all. Like and then there was this moment of, who are you? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And then having to let him know, hey,
Stop it.
yeah. And then so it became more of an argument at first, but then you know how wives were good at not letting something go. So it's like, no, that's a problem here. You know what I'm saying? It's a problem here. But in a lot of different things. And so when it begin to affect the home, or affect me, or affect whatever, then I'm like, okay,
And so how did you handle that? Like, here's your wife telling you something. How did you get through that?
Oh, I had to pray a lot more. I had to dig down deep into my inner demons. You know what I mean? And I wish I had more of an outlet. I had pastor. I mean, so it was a process.
Yeah,
God got
yeah.
me through it. You know what I mean? God got me through it.
yeah, it was rough. It was rough. Not because I'm 19, married. I didn't know what that life looked like, or what to expect. So, coming home late, or if he made an arrest, and it was a little crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, God. And then like he tells you, like through the years, he everything that God has brought him through. And this is only what you heard, 2-3 stories. That's not even all of it.
Okay.
So you hear the stuff that God brings him through. And as as you're going through, or if we argued or had a fight, I'm like, okay, God. I turn to God, okay, God. There's got to be reason and purpose. I mean, it's each and every time that there was a life situation, God brings him through. It's always brought him through. Man, are you missing something here? Like, I'm trying to I was always taken back at it. Even I'm the one, he was, because of his job, I said, I'm the one at church. I'm the one, and I'm looking and it's just amazing how I look at him like, yo, God has kept you.
And
God has
that's
kept me
her
through.
prayers
Don't get me
too.
wrong.
It's her prayers that did that. Yeah, without a doubt.
They weren't always received. Because there was time, right, that you would say, we didn't agree, right? Until we got to a place of agreement. Like now, like we're good, but there was a time it was just.
Well, you were growing together. You was young.
Yeah, we were young.
Growing together.
Understanding,
learning.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We had
God changing us into
Right.
what He needs. So all those things you're mixing in a pot here, and it
because
was
she's the praying one in our family, she gets attacked a lot too, and she's seen stuff in our home
Okay.
that she's had to rebuke. And it sometimes aligns to what's going on at the time in the house.
Right.
There's a few things that's happened. So, for instance, when the kids were younger, I think I've shared this. Alyssa, she's going to be 30, since little.
Yep.
There was a story with him where he was in the car. He had her strapped in the back. She was five, strapped in the back, and he's driving. and he's he thinks a lot. He runs things through his mind. He's just thinks a lot. And sometimes
Analytical.
I'm very analytical, a little bit OCD.
Yeah, his mind just goes, you know. So he's driving, and she's sitting in the back seat, and she said to Dad, Jesus is trying to talk to you, but you're not listening to him. And he's like, okay, yeah. And how do you know that? Because I see him sitting right next to you, and he's waiting for you. He's trying to talk to you.
Wow.
So she was like, but you're thinking too much. She told him basically what he was. And he came home. He goes, tell your mother what you said to me, because it was true. Because he's always like, there was points where he questioned, which I'm like, how do you get to the point where you question? Because again, if you know what I'm saying, it's like God done all these things, but at that moment, because it's, you know, right, the battle's in the mind, right? His thinking. You have a 5-year-old saying, hey, Jesus is trying to talk to you. So she saw it, and
her whole history was that.
Yeah, there was a time she's little. She was on my bed. He was working. We were disagreeing, and she was on the bed laying down. And I was just so angry. And so we're like, whatever, you know, whatever. Hang up the phone. This kid sits up. She's wide awake. She sits up. She's like 5, and sits up, and she's like, devil, get out of my house! And she's swinging this, and I'm like, put me in check quick. And I was like, oh, recognize it at age 5. I've woken up and it's either I've had dreams, specific dreams. In the dreams, I remember a demon rising out of somebody that I knew at the time. This particular person saved with struggles.
Right.
But she was laying back, and while she's laying back, the demon itself rises up. So sits up, looks over at me, and says something. In the dream, I remember what it said. When I woke up, I can't tell you what it said, right? But
you
I
can't
remember.
say, or you don't remember?
No, I don't remember
Okay.
what it said, right? So I'm kind of like, so I remember battling for a minute of trying to remember, and the Lord checked me, and He's like, "Don't worry about what He said.
Right.
Nothing He's gonna say is gonna be for my good, or for any benefit."
Right.
So I had to dismiss that. But it was a lot of dreams with this particular person, demonic moves. And then in another dream with the same person, she was sitting on my bedroom floor with an Indian position. And I was like, I forgot exactly what happened, but in the dream I said something about, he goes, what are you doing? Can't you see what you're doing? And she snaps out of this thing and she goes, I'm trying to get out of this and I don't know how. And she goes right back into her. It was a weird moment in time. It was a very pivotal point in our ministry. So I knew I recognized where the stuff was coming from, but it was like specific stuff, dreams. I kept going, Pastor, and the pastor was like, girl, you have so many dreams. I came to the Lord because of a dream. But I remember he gave me one dream and I came to church. Then I knew everything the dream, right? And I didn't know the purpose of the dream. So now it's Sunday and I go to church and the dream is starting to unfold, every word. And I knew.
Like in real time, in real life.
Yeah. So I have this dream and I get up. Sunday I go to church. I'm like, worshiping and I'm like, and it starts happening. And I'm like, this one's going to come out of her seat. This is going to go up here. This one's going to surround her in a circle. This and everything. And I said, Lord, why are you showing me this? It's either confirming something or it's either exposing something. Like, why am I seeing? So it was a lot of stuff that was happening, and God was faithful and is faithful, I should say. There was one dream I started telling Pastor, and the Lord, in the middle of Pastor, and as I'm telling Pastor, the Lord stops me. He goes, I didn't tell you to release that. And I'm like, no. And I stopped talking. It was like I'm talking in and I just stopped talking because I was like, because I was just trying to, and I said, Lord, if these are missions and I've or something you're trying to assignments that I failed to, forgive me. It was just so much. It was so real. And everything was happening. And I'm like,
so did you get the answer? Like for when you had that dream and it started happening in real time, everything that was
yeah.
Was
so
in
everything
dream.
started.
Did you get the answer for
everything
why
started to
that
confirm.
was?
Yeah, it was a moment in time in our ministry. It was a pivotal moment in time in our ministry that could have either veered us left or right. I'm not gonna say it was a week worth. It's months of this constant. And I'm like, Lord, the Lord rebuked. One time I was in the room and Not to be so specific because I don't, right? But I was in my bedroom, and I'm in my bedroom in the dark praying, right? Because I started when the sun started going, so I just stood in the dark praying, standing in my bedroom, and I'm like, I guess it's okay because everybody else accepted it, and I grabbed the door handle and like, amen, grabbed the door handle to walk out my bedroom, and it was like a bass, you know, in the bass, you ever see those cars and the bass is like that bass? That's what I feel inside of me, telling me no. And I was like, I mean, it was like him correcting me. It was a strong no. And I let go of that handle and I stood there and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, Lord. And he made me stay on it. And he told me, continue praying on this. So there was some other things that I was just really boggled by the whole thing, really so eye-opening, you know? And he always forewarned me, and there was always a protection somewhere. He always, you know, he used to just pull up his presence. I'd be sitting down, not even thinking about about God, and he would just roll up. His presence, you would feel it. I don't know I don't know who I was speaking to, but I think I was speaking to Felix, and we're saying how busyness, it comes in subtle, the distractions. If I would have allowed us to be distracted, we probably, God knows where we'd be right now, where my family would be right now. But it does come in. And even in the most subtle ways, in the last week or two, it was like almost every single day. And I got overwhelmed. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This has got to slow down. There was too much happening. And I had to like pump the brakes. No, I can't afford to be distracted, you know, at a time where young adults are starting,
Right.
you know, and things are happening in my home. My daughter gave her life back to the Lord.
Yeah.
My daughter Liana is now in fellowship and back at Faith Alive with us. And there was so much important little things that were happening, but all these distractions were coming. And I had to pause, give God thanks, you know, again, and refocus. So I started taking everything that was coming slowly. I had to approach it one by one. Because what overwhelmed me is looking at the whole thing. This ain't about your fitting in. So this is about what God wants from us. This is about surrendering you, me, your thoughts, your ways, and turning it over to the one that thinks higher, the one that knows better, the one that you have to trust. That one, that's the one that I want to put my hands into.
Guys, thank you for coming, and thank you guys for joining. We would love you to give us a like, subscribe, turn on that notification. It'll greatly help us. Thanks for watching.
Amen.
Amen.